Have you ever felt like, man, I just don't understand my husband? What in the world is he thinking? Today on the podcast, we interview Shaunti Feldhahn and ask her about her book, For Women Only, What You Need to Know About the Inner Lives of Men. Take a listen and be sure to like and subscribe.
Don't you know it's Carl and the Prison Marriage Podcast?
Welcome, everybody, to the Carl and Heather Present podcast. We're going to have a great time together today because we have speaker, best-selling author, and groundbreaking social researcher, Shaunti Feldhahn, on the podcast today. Shaunti, we're excited to be with you today and excited to get into it. So let's go.
Yeah.
You guys are so sweet for having me on. Thank you. And hey, I understand that at some point here, congratulations are in order for hitting a lot of podcasts.
Oh, yes. We're on our way to our 100th episode. And
that is so exciting. Congratulations,
yes.
you guys.
Yeah. By the grace of God.
Thank you. And you and your husband, Jeff, have a podcast as well. What's it called?
We do. We're not nearly as far along as you are, though. I think we're at like awesome. 30 or 35 or something episodes. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a grind, right? You gotta work so hard to get that going.
It is definitely a medium that, as all your podcast listeners know, is incredibly important for some people. But yeah, it definitely takes being purposeful. So
yeah, that's so true. Well, tell us, before we jump into, we want to talk about, you have many books, but we want to talk about one in particular today. But I want to know a little bit about you. So you're married to Jeff. How long have y'all been married? Tell us about your family.
We have been married, it sounds weird to say this, almost 32 years. So in September, it'll be 32 years.
Nice.
And we have two adult kids, a daughter who is 26 and a son who is his senior year in college. And our 26-year-old daughter just got married. So we're entering this whole new phase of life. And every time I say the word my son-in-law, I'm like, that is the strangest phrase. I have a son-in-law. But it's a great season. And so we're really enjoying it.
That's amazing.
Congrats.
So did they come and ask you guys about marriage advice? Are they like, we got to ask mom and dad all the things?
Well, here's the problem. I mean, and this really is a problem. When you've been a marriage author for 23 years, the poor son-in-law is like, you got some reading to do, buddy.
Yes.
Yes. Wow.
Like, no pressure. Like, this poor kid is marrying the daughter of two marriage authors.
Right.
There's some expectations on the shoulders.
Yes. Oh,
I'm going to put that guy on my prayer list because that seems.
Thank you.
Yes, I could see how that. What's his work? Just out of curiosity, what's your son-in-law do?
He is actually starting. He's going back to get a master's degree starting in a couple of days for teaching. So he's going to be a school teacher.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That's great.
Fantastic.
Well, let's get into the book.
We have it right here. Look at this.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to talk about this sincerely because I told you before we got on the official recording side of this, but this book is called For Women Only.
Yes.
And the subtitle is What You Need to Know About the Inner Lives of Men. And I think it's pretty important to note that it still took a woman to figure this out. But the fact that you have done a lot, this isn't just a book of your, best guesses. You did some research. You interviewed thousands, is it right to say?
Yes.
Guys, and really got into the responses. And so For Women Only, everything that women need to know about the inner lives of men, on behalf of all men everywhere, thank you for this work. I celebrate and applaud you for going after it. And you did awesome. You did so good.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, I want to know, before we get into the book, what made you want to write this? Like, why did you write the book?
Well, the way this whole thing started, because I had written a few books before, but they weren't these research-based books. Because I should explain, my background is a little bit different. I was an analyst on Wall Street. It was an analytical background. But it was like God was setting me up to be able to do this right-hand turn and take that analytical experience, that research experience, and just use it in a different way. Because I sort of stumbled over this stuff initially. What actually happened, the reason I ended up writing this is I was actually writing a couple of novels. I had a chance to write these fiction books.
So
And
cool.
one of the main characters in the novel that I was writing was a man. And I realized I had no idea how to put thoughts in his head. Like, I had to say what this main character was thinking. I couldn't just say what he was doing, right? Like, I had to put thoughts in his head. And I'm like, I have no idea what a guy would be thinking. And
Yeah.
so this whole thing started because I would like ask Jeff, my husband, or, we'd be out to dinner with another couple, maybe. And I'd go to the other husband and I'd say, okay, can I interview you? Like, can I find out, like, here's the scene that I'm putting my main character in. What would you be thinking if this was you in this situation? And as these guys started telling me what they'd actually be thinking, half the time I was like, what? Like, seriously?
Yeah.
I was so shocked, honestly, by some of the things I was hearing. And then as I did more and more, had more and more of these conversations, I started to realize, what I'm hearing, it's not just that it's surprising that matters. These things that I was hearing from these men, like, and literally, like, I got kind of crazy. Like, I was going up to the guys behind the counter at Starbucks and like saying, what
Yeah.
would you be thinking if this was you?
Uh-huh.
And,
Yeah.
and I realized, what I'm hearing is really foundational stuff. Like, these aren't things that these men say that they think or they feel like it happens once every couple of months. The things they were describing were things that, like, down deep, they were thinking, they were wrestling with, or whatever it was, like, every single day, multiple times a day. And at that point, I guess maybe I'd been married about 8 years, and I'm like, why haven't I heard this before? And so that's what set me on this path to go, okay, if this is accurate, if what I'm hearing is accurate, this is really important, and we as women need to know it. We need to hear it. We need to grapple with it if we want good relationships. So that's how the whole thing sort of started.
Well, that's really cool. And it kind of helps put some language and framework around something that I've just believed intrinsically about men. We are the parents of 4 boys.
Oh,
And
awesome.
yeah, they're awesome, and they're teenagers now.
Mhm.
But since they were little, and then their little guy friends would come around and play, I sort of developed this working model of believing that all little boys come with basically the same operating system. Like, they're kind of even across cultures, different countries, they all kind of, you can sort of figure them out pretty quickly. They're not we're not speaking for men again, we're not entirely sophisticated machines. We're valuable and precious in the Lord's sight, but especially little boys are easy to figure out. But is what I hear you saying about through your research, you kind of noticed some specific through lines that no matter
Yes.
where these guys may be coming from, there were some through lines in what you were learning about men that most women probably wouldn't pick up on initially. What are some of those?
Yeah, that's, you know what, Carl, that is a great way of putting it, those through lines. I'll tell you what a couple of them are, but let me make one observation based on what you said about kind of this. There are these common patterns, because what we ended up doing, just so everybody knows, because I want to make sure that people know this isn't based on our opinion, because once this stuff happened, once I started to see this and be like, what am I seeing and hearing this, so many times, it's a long story, but God made this amazing way for us to do this big nationally representative survey of men, and then one of women. And then now we've done more and more and done different books. And now it's been like I said, 22, 23 years. And I think we just finished our 15th nationally representative survey. I think we're at about 50,000 men and women over these last 20 plus years. And the through line, as you put it, what we tend to find is that this is a trend, it's not everybody, about 75 to 85% of men and about 75 to 85% of women tend to answer in some of these common patterns, depending on what it is that we're talking about. But I always tell people, wait a minute, just so you know, like these are generalizations, these are trends, these are patterns. If 80% of men said one way, by definition, 20% didn't, right? So everybody's an individual. And I think that that's important to point out is so for some of the folks listening to this, some of the things we'll be talking about, they may not apply to your husband or your boyfriend or your son, right? Like, because they may be in the 20%. And that happens, across all systems for these guys.
Yeah. Sure.
So, but
okay. So then, what are some of those?
What are
through
they?
lines?
Those through lines. So, one of the things that we found that's a very, very important through line, that's a very foundational thing running under the surface of a lot of others, is that it turns out that men and women tend to have two different sets of primary insecurities running under the surface. And there's a lot of implications of that. But the main thing for most women to know, and really honestly for most men to know, is what that means is if your spouse has a different insecurity from you, like if they're in that 80%, right? Like that, and you guys are in that pattern, by definition, what that means is that something different is going to hurt their feelings than would hurt yours. And it's like some of these insecurities, these deep places where we have these questions about ourselves and these self-doubts, they're like, it's like a raw nerve. And you can hit that nerve in your spouse and not have any idea that that's what you're doing. And you'd certainly never want to. Like, who wants to hurt their spouse's feelings? Like, nobody wants to do that. And so one of the biggest things that when Jeff and I do marriage events now, this is one of the places we start. We're like, okay, let's talk about these differences in these insecurities between men and women, because it helps people get what we're talking about. So do you mind if I give this example? Do you mind if I just...
I would love to know if I'm in the 80% or not.
Okay. Yes, let's figure that out. So this is the way that we normally sort of explain it so that women who are listening to this kind of get the differences. So what we found is that roughly 75 to 85% of women, the raw nerve, the question that's running under the surface is basically, am I lovable? Okay, so it's that question of, am I lovable? Am I special? Am I worthy of being loved for who I am on the inside? So that's a really important thing, because for what that means is to speak into that, we love to feel loved. That's sort of what we think is the whole point of having the relationship. And what we don't realize is that for men, no, it's actually quite different, because they have a different question running under the surface. Instead of, am I lovable? It's, am I able? Am I adequate? Do I measure up? Do I have what it takes? So if a woman, you could kind of summarize it as, am I worthy of being loved for who I am on the inside? A man is kind of wondering, am I any good at what I do on the outside? That's completely different.
Yeah.
And it lends itself to a completely different set of primary needs.
Interesting.
There was an interesting thing that I read about in your book when you were beginning these surveys and sort of testing them out. One of the questions was kind of the ultimate, would you rather feel totally unloved or totally disrespected or something like that?
Yes.
And is it right that men had a little bit of a hard time differentiating the two?
Yes, it's like if I don't feel respected, how am I going to feel loved?
Yeah,
Like that was
absolutely.
just they couldn't even conceive of it. I think in the book, I can't remember if I tell the story in the book because we ended up, because we had done so much more research, we ended up putting out a newer edition about 10 years later. And so I can't remember if this story made it into the second edition, but this actually, it was like God set me up for this. Because I literally remembered something that had happened in a singles retreat that had been like when I was, I don't know, like 24 years old or something, before I went off to graduate school, before I met Jeff. And the retreat speaker divided the room in half and put all the men on one side and put all the women on the other side. And he turned to the men and he said, I'm going to ask each of you a question. I'm going to ask you to choose between two negative options. Like no one would ever want to have to make this choice, but I'm going to force you to choose. And he turned to the men's side of the room and he said, I'm going to ask you guys to choose. Would you rather be alone and unloved in the world, or would you rather be feel inadequate and disrespected by everyone? Like no one would want either of those things. But if you had to, okay, guys, who would rather feel alone and unloved in the world? And like almost every man raised his hand, and you heard this audible gasp from the women's side of the room. Like, who would ever make that choice? And then, of course, the men were equally surprised when most of the women said, look, if I have to, I'll feel inadequate. Just don't make me feel unloved. And it was like, whoa. And so when we ended up doing the big national survey, it's interesting you reference that, Carl, because we ended up asking that exact question on the survey. And that was where 74% of the men on this nationally representative survey said, if I have to make a choice, I will choose to feel unloved. Just don't make me feel inadequate.
That's so interesting. So then, okay, so if I know that about my husband, would you agree with that? Would you say?
I'm on board.
Okay.
I'm your basic white guy in this. I would rather be respected.
You're going to be alone and unloved.
Well, actually, can I mention something about that? It's not just white guys. We actually eliminated anything on the survey that changed by age or racial background or religious background or education or like if Black men answer different from white men, there's something other than men going on. And so we didn't include that in the book. So literally it's not just a cultural thing.
That's cool. That's really interesting.
That's really interesting.
It turns out the male brain is the male brain all over the world. Who knew?
So, and you say all over the world. Was it worldwide? Was it like Western culture? So you would say that
is.
Cross-cultural?
We've done this in Mexico, Singapore, England, and the U.S. So, and all of that has been pretty universal all over.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so interesting. Okay, so
I feel so seen.
Okay, so then help me understand. If I know that, okay, obviously I know we're very different. But how do I then respond to him knowing that I want to tend to respond the way I feel loved?
Of course.
Or, what I want, that's the way I respond. And so how do I make that shift in my mind as his wife to be able to meet his needs in that way?
So the most important thing for any of us is for us to be aware of this, that it's even a thing to begin with, right? Because I just didn't know that I was hurting my husband's feelings constantly. I would never want to. I just didn't know that I was making him feel inadequate and feel disrespected. That's like sort of 101 for understanding men or women, because it works the other way too, right? Like husbands are making their wives feel unloved and they don't want to, right? Like they would never want to do that. And so step number one for anybody is basically going, okay, I've got to put on my learning hat and basically have this attitude of curiosity, because it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, okay,
Yeah, right.
like I
True.
will tell you, for example, this is just a silly example, but if Jeff puts the dishes in the dishwasher and I come along behind him and change it and put the dishes in the dishwasher a more efficient way, what I think is the right way, I'm just
Uh-huh.
trying to help. I have no intention of signaling, well, you're an idiot. You didn't do that right. That is absolutely not my intention. I'm just trying to help. And so that's an example of, okay, get curious. Like it makes no sense to me, but okay, he has a different underlying insecurity and self-doubt than I do. His is, am I any good at what I do on the outside that's constantly there running under the surface? And oh my goodness, by coming along behind him and fixing what he did, I've just told him what you did on the inside wasn't good enough. On the outside wasn't good enough. You failed.
Mm.
And it's this painful thing. Again, you're hitting a raw nerve. So that is the first step, is that, okay, put on your learning hat, have an attitude of curiosity rather than an attitude of cross the arms and, well, it shouldn't be that way. He's too
Mhm.
oversensitive.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
okay, maybe he is, but you are too in your areas.
Sure, sure. So then is there a next step? You said that's the first step. Is there a next step?
Yeah. So the next step, if you're basically going, okay, I need to have an attitude of learning, trying to understand these things, then the next step is unwinding years of habits.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Oh, no. Yeah.
That, I mean, let's all just admit this, right? All of us have years of habits that
Sure.
we've got all these assumptions about what's going on inside our spouse, and some of those assumptions are wrong. And on those assumptions, we've built habits. And so it's like, okay, I've got to unwind all of these, thoughts and look inside and go, who is inside this precious person that I'm married to that I really want to build up? Like, I don't want to be tearing him down like constantly. That's that's not my goal. And so what are the habits? What are the things that I need to change? And so in this case, like there's two habits that we need to change. One is that we need to like kind of understand and redo those habits of the little things that send that negative message that hit the raw nerve, right? Like again, like he's cleaned the kitchen, you come along behind him and re-clean the countertops, or he's done something with the kids and you're like, why did you do that? And you're not intending, you're just asking a question. He's hearing a challenge. And so it's like, oh, so I need to say, instead of why did you do that, it's, I know you had a reason for that. Can you help me understand what it is? Same question. It's just
Yeah.
asked in a way that's not going to hit the nerve. So understanding those little things that hit the nerve and like trying to avoid those. And then the second habit to change is this is much more fun,
Okay.
which is realizing what is it that sends the positive message? Like if my
Yeah.
husband is really wrestling under the surface with going, look, I want to be a great husband, but am I? I want to be a great dad, but do I have any idea what I'm doing? Like, I want to be a great salesman or whatever it is he does professionally, but somebody's going to figure out I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, that's what's going on under the surface. If that's true, then wow, I have an opportunity to speak life into that. I have an opportunity to like really build him up in those areas. That's something that I can do as his wife that nobody else can do in the same way, because I know him better than anybody else. And one of the things the guys all told me in some of the interviews and such was, hey, look, my wife knows me better than anybody else in the world. And if she believes that I can do this, I know I can. But if I get the sense from her that she doesn't, then I probably can't, because she knows me better than anybody else in the world. And so the positive habit is looking for what speaks life into those places. And even the littlest things. Do you mind if I give you an example?
No, please do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this is the silliest, like, little bitty thing, but statistically it makes this huge difference. It took us a long time to figure out what you could say to your husband that had kind of that emotional impact on him. Kind of, for a woman, because we have that am I lovable question, hearing I love you speaks right into that, right? Like that speaks to our heart. For a guy, hearing I love you is nice, but it doesn't speak into that really deep place. And so it took us a while, but we finally figured out that if you can just literally look for something your husband does and say thank you, that those two words have this like incredibly emotional impact on him. Like, thank you for taking the kids when I was so busy and I couldn't hear myself think on my Zoom call. Thanks for taking them outside. That to him is like, he'll run through a brick wall for you because you are like telling him what you do on the outside is good. So those habits, like if you can retrain some of those, and it takes a bit because we naturally as women, it's roughly about 80% of women naturally say I love you to their husband or to their kids. But thank you doesn't normally like come out as easily. Like we can think it, but it doesn't necessarily make it out of our mouth. And so that's an example of retraining a habit on the positive side.
That gets into a bit of in the book that I read that I love the way one section you kind of juxtapose these needs, the need for women to feel loved and the need for men to be respected. Unconditional love we get. Everyone knows about that, especially in the Christian world. Unconditional love. Yes, I want to love you unconditional. Unconditional respect is a little bit of a different proposition just from a cultural standpoint.
It
Well,
is.
you've got to earn my respect. You've got to behave in a way and then I'll respect you. But you kind of position those two things against each other in the book based
Yeah.
on needs. Could you talk a little bit about
Yes.
what you mean, what it means in a marriage relationship, especially like unconditional respect for the man? Talk about that.
What it looks like. Because this is one of these areas that in our culture, it actually can raise some red flags.
Sure.
Wait, are you
Oh, yeah.
saying I should give him respect even if he's abusive? No. That's
That's
not what
right.
I'm
Right.
saying, right?
Right.
Yeah.
This is much more, think of it as you're in a marriage. This is assuming this is a marriage of goodwill. If anybody listening to this is in a marriage that has that kind of abuse or control or coercion in the background, this is a totally different conversation.
That's
And
right.
that's where you need help, and you need to get help figuring out, because you're going to apply some of this stuff in a radically different way. Like you need boundaries instead, etc.
Sure.
But for the vast majority of marriages, it's a marriage of goodwill in that both of us care about each other and we're both trying, right? Even if you don't think your spouse is trying, we found statistically most people are. It's just you don't realize that you're maybe trying hard in the wrong areas, right? Or you're hurting the other person you don't intend to. And so when you talk about unconditional love and you talk about unconditional regard or respect or affirmation or whatever the word is that you want to use, one of the most important things to recognize is that you're talking about ultimately speaking life into them in those areas, even when they've made mistakes. That's basically what that means. Because like again, let's just say on the woman's side, or maybe it's the guy who needs the unconditional love and he's in the 20%, right? Like whoever it is that needs that sense, that has that question, am I lovable? The most important thing is to feel that even if I'm not particularly lovable today, even if I've had a bad day, you still love me. Like I haven't done something today that is going to make you go, okay, I'm taking my toys and going home. I don't love you anymore because you weren't lovable. It's that feeling, right? Like even at your worst, I am going to choose to love you. That agape kind of love, right? Choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the same idea for the man, or again, if the woman is in the 20%, the person who has that feeling of needing that, deeply needing that appreciation because they're worried, am I any good at what I do? That to be able to say, yeah, you didn't handle that right with the kids today, but you are an amazing dad. I'm still going to regard you. I'm still going to appreciate you. You haven't suddenly lost my affirmation, my appreciation, my respect because you've handled something wrong. Like, I still am going to choose to respect you. That is a type of agape love. That is a type of a choice. And so obviously, again, when either person goes into an abusive mode, then we need boundaries instead. It's going to look really different. But in most cases, that no matter if you've made mistakes, I still love you, I still appreciate you, is hugely important for most humans, man or woman.
So good.
Thank
So
you for
good.
talking a little bit more about that. I was
Yeah,
very
absolutely.
curious about that concept.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, if you think about, just as if you don't mind me just jumping back in there, if you think about it, that's what every human being is longing for, right? Is to know that as imperfect as we are, that we are known, that we're cared for, we're accepted regardless. And so all we're doing is saying, just realize that the way that plays out is going to look different for some men and for some women. Like, the way that plays out again is going to be, yeah, you didn't handle that right with the kids. Like, you're right. You screwed up. that wasn't, I would not have handled things that way. I think that hurt their feelings, but you are a fantastic parent. Right? Like, I believe in you. That's an example that everybody's like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see how that would be like important if that affirmation is important to you. That's all we're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so good. Well, you had a surprise on the study, or on in the surveys that you did. Can you talk about that? The surprise
At the
that
very
you.
end, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This made me cry. Because I got the results back and I just couldn't help it. I started crying. At the very end of the survey, I asked the men, a question that was basically, what's the one most important thing you wish your wife knew? But feel you can't explain to her or tell her. And the whole survey had basically been on all these ways that maybe a woman might not understand a man. And so I was thinking I was going to get all these answers that were like, well, I wish she would do this better, or I want more sex, or whatever, right? Like, that's what I was expecting, because it was I gave them a blank space. They could write anything they wanted. It was an open-ended question. And so I get their survey results back. As I'm reading the spreadsheets, I just started crying, because the top answer by far, when they could have said anything, was the one most important thing I wish my wife knew is how much I love her.
Oh.
It just broke me. This is the
Yeah.
way our men feel about us. And so it's so crucial for us to say, oh my word, this is how they feel about us. Have I been not working to understand him just because I didn't realize he was different? And that this big, strong, confident looking man that I'm married to, wow, really? He has this tenderness and this insecurity on the inside that I didn't even know was there. Like, now it makes me even more want to try to speak life into that precious place.
Yeah. Wow. That is special.
Shaunti, I'm thinking about your work, and now that it's gone on, this book has sold over 2 million copies now. Incredible, like, data-based, just you're learning so much and then helping people to apply it to real life situations. I wonder if you could share one or two stories of actual people whose relationships have been transformed, or just feedback that you've gotten just from the average bear out there that made its way back to you and Jeff that said, "Hey, I just need you to know this helped me so much." What are some of the one or two stories like that you have?
There are so many that I mean, this is one of the things that has just been like, oh my gosh, there's no way I could have planned this. No way I could have arranged this. It's just, thank you, God, to be able to be part of this, really. Yeah, we hear these stories all the time. Some of the most common comments that we hear from people just every day is that, somebody was reading, like the wife was reading For Women Only in bed next to her husband and is turning to him like every half page going, is this true?
Yeah.
Is this how you really feel? Is this how you think? And the guy's like, yeah, what about that? Did you not know before? Right? Like, wow. And it starts a conversation because we just don't realize. Yeah, one of the very earliest stories that still just gets me. This is like literally one of the first things that we heard was a woman who told us that, because the book had just come out, and she was in the process of divorcing her husband. They had a baby. He was on the East Coast. She was now living with her parents in Oregon. She left her baby with the parents and was flying back to the East Coast in order to finish the divorce papers with, her husband. And she saw For Women Only in an airport bookstore.
Oh, man.
And I don't know why, if you're in the process of divorce, you'd even be interested, right? But she
Sure.
picked it up. Something prompted her. She picked it up in the bookstore. She said she read it on the plane. And when she got off the plane, she went to her almost ex-husband and said, is this true? And it started this big, long conversation. And she's like, I had no idea, because she was assuming, because he had some issues, addiction issues and some other things. And so she's like, I thought all of our issues were all him. And she said, I had no idea that all day, every day, I was doing things that were tearing him down. Like I didn't know that I was sabotaging our marriage too, like that it was also on me. And this is the email that we got from her. And so she said they ended up postponing the paperwork, and they spent all weekend talking. And at the end of the weekend, she flew back to Oregon, got the baby, and came home.
No, man.
Oh, wow.
And that's an example to me of, we hear these things of this saved our marriage. And I'm like, dang it. Like, if a 200-page book can save a marriage, there's a lot of tragically unnecessary divorces going on.
Yes.
Because
Wow.
this is
Yes.
literally just a lack of information, just a lack of, I had no idea. And so that's why we're so passionate about this, is just trying to get across some of these things we just didn't know about each other before.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for that. And
Yeah.
that's the heart of the matter.
Yeah.
And thank God for so many other people who've been transformed by what God is doing through you and your husband and your work. It's so
Yeah.
fruitful, and I'm so grateful for it. Thank you. Thank you for being on the podcast. We've got For Women Only. We're going to give a copy away, but tell us the best way to find out more about your work, the best website to go to, the name of your and Jeff's podcast. How can people
You're so
get more
kind.
deeply connected to you?
So the main way is to go to shaunti.com, shaunti.com. That's my website. And if people are interested, we actually have a weekly email that goes out that's basically like an equipping thing. Like, here's the
Awesome.
4 things that your husband wishes you knew about whatever, or
Yeah.
what the wife wishes the husband knew about whatever. So we do that as a weekly email that people can sign up for. But we also have this podcast called I Wish You Could Hear This. So that's the one that Jeff and I started about a year ago. We're way behind you guys. But yeah, putting some effort into that.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
That's wonderful.
Well, keep going.
Yeah.
We're so grateful that you've shared your time with us today. We've loved this conversation.
Yeah.
It's been so helpful for me. I feel so seen and encouraged. And maybe we need to do another one because your other book is for men only, and it's
Yes.
just the other side of this coin. So thank you so much, Shaunti. I'm grateful for you.
Yep. Appreciate you being
you
on.
guys.
All
right.
We're together on
Thanks.
purpose.
Blessings. We say this at the end of the podcast. Together on purpose.
Yep.
See you later.
All righty.
We hear from people all the time who listen to the podcast, who need prayer, who've heard something on the podcast that inspired them to start moving closer towards their spouse. We want to hear from you. If you need somebody to pray with you about something, maybe you're in a broken relationship, maybe you need a breakthrough in a certain area of your life, maybe it's finances or job or just relational connect, maybe something with your children, would you please let us pray with you about the things that you're facing? You can email your prayer requests to hi@carlandheather.com. That's hi@carlandheather.com. And we want to pray for you. If you're having a marriage event, you're hosting something at your church, you're putting on a conference where you live, would you consider bringing Heather and I in to speak at your marriage event? The fall is just around the corner. It's a great time to have a marriage event, and we would love to come be a part of what you're doing. If you're interested in getting the process of that started, go to carlandheather.com.